Today we're asking, is belief in God still important in politics? Or have we moved on from this nation's Christian roots?
Well, we're joined by the Director of Affinity at Gospel Churches in Partnership, Graham Nichols, and the Head of Domestic Policy at Pickthall House, which is a think tank that looks at multiculturalism, Jacob Williams. Graham, I'll start with you. Is it a shame that Kemi Badenoch has lost her faith, and is it a shame that that's perhaps missing from politics?
I think it is a shame. Whether she ever had a robust faith is not quite clear. That's only for her and God to know. But the fact that she's expressing the fact that she doesn't believe in God anymore is obviously a sad thing, because both historically but also practically, Christianity is an influence for good. And being a Christian, obviously I want lots of people to be Christians. So it's a shame in every kind of aspect. And of course, people can't be neutral in politics. If you don't have a Christian belief system, you have another belief system that you then apply to all the decisions. So it's not like there's some neutral space and then there's a religious space. We're all religious. It just depends what we believe, what our morality is, what our values are, and how they connect to the decisions that we make. So it's sad that she's kind of saying, I like bits of Christianity, but I don't really like having a relationship with God and accepting that God even exists. So it's a kind of half
point, Graham. Before we come to Jacob, isn't that basically where a lot of Brits are? I mean, we know that church attendance is on the floor. We know that people quite like the sort of infrastructure of Christianity. They like Christmas. They like sort of the stories. But do they believe there's a man in the sky? According to new polling, less than half of Brits now do.
Absolutely. Less than half, and probably in practice, I don't know, 5% of people that would be committed as Christians. So it's not a surprise that she would be expressing that. I would take issue that I think nominal kind of Christianity was probably more of a thing a generation or more ago. The trend has probably been a bit more away from that, but just now is turning a little bit more towards that, because people are thinking, well, where do all these values come from that we're arguing about, to do with, equality and loving people and caring for the needy and the vulnerable and so forth, and how you define the nation state? They all come from our Christian heritage. So there's a little bit of a trend back. And actually, Christianity, church attendance is not as bad as you're saying. It's actually on the rise slightly. So there's
some young people are turning up at church in larger numbers, I hear. But Jacob, let's turn to you. Do you think we need a bit more Christianity in our politics?
Well, I think it'd be a very good thing. And I say this as a Muslim. Many religious minorities, Muslims and others, would think it was a wonderful thing if Christianity was stronger in Britain. We recognise the importance of Christianity to our heritage, to our culture, and indeed to the freedoms that we all enjoy, minorities most saliently of all. I'm less particularly concerned about Kemi Badenoch's personal beliefs than about the state of public life in general. And the one issue on which I'd have to enter a note of disagreement here is the idea there's no neutral space. Of course, no one can be neutral in all of their beliefs, but we do have a set of values we recognise are common to people of all faiths and none. And recognising that's very important. It avoids the risk of sliding into using the language of theocracy, the language of saying that you have to believe in God or hold some particular religious beliefs to be a good leader, be a good politician or a good citizen. I think that's something we should reject. That's the kind of value that's held by a small minority of Christians, a small minority of Muslims, people like the Catholic.
What brought you to Islam? So did you convert?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I did. And I really think we have a great deal in common with Christians insofar as we recognise what I believe is the same God, and we recognise the teachings of Jesus as very important. We just disagree as to whether he was indeed the Son of God or just sent by God. But the important point about our public life is there are values that Christians, Muslims and atheists all share, including the values of religious freedom, freedom of speech, and treating all human beings with dignity and respect. And those are the values our public life should be based on, not any one religion or other.
Well, of course, those are the values that we'd like to think everyone believes in today. But throughout history, we have seen a little bit more tension in those areas. We have seen people burnt at the stake because there is not the correct flavour of Christianity. Only a few hundred years ago, you have to go back for the sort of Bloody Mary period of this country's history. Or indeed, after 1688, you had the Protestant supremacy. I mean, we have had great religious division in this country. I wonder, Graham, if this country now doesn't really have much room for politics, in the way that when Tony Blair was asked whether he prayed with George W. Bush, in America that was a normal question. In Britain that was mocked.
Yes. I think you're asking about whether politics has space for religion. It's not true that there's some neutral space where there's a whole load of agreed values. There's quite a lot to fight about. We've had some terrible votes recently to do with assisted suicide and to do with abortion changes, which these are not a commonly held set of values. These are things to argue for. If you take away the root, which is the Judeo-Christian faith, then actually you don't have the fruit for that long. We're still kind of in the overhang of all the Christian influence.
Yeah, and religious teaching's lost in that debate, really, frankly. Graham, we're going to have to leave it there, but really appreciate your insight on this. Graham Nichols and Jacob Williams, thank you very much for your time.